South Africa 2-1 Nigeria. Super Falcons miss Women's World Cup for the first time in history. A historic heartbreak for the Super Falcons. History has been rewritten, and unfortunately, not in the way Nigerian football fans hoped. The Super Falcons of Nigeria have failed to qualify for the FIFA Women's World Cup for the first time in their history, as South Africa's Banyana defeated Nigeria 2-1 in the crucial African playoff battle. For 35 years, Nigeria had been a constant presence at the Women's World Cup, qualifying for every edition since the tournament began. But that remarkable record has now come to an end, with the Super Falcons set to miss the 2027 FIFA Women's World Cup. It is a painful moment for one of Africa's most successful women's football nations. One heavyweight had to fall. The road to the World Cup became even more dramatic after both African giants suffered defeats in the WAFCON quarterfinals. South Africa lost 2-1 to Morocco, while Nigeria suffered a narrow 1-0 defeat to Cameroon. With neither team reaching the WAFCON semi-finals, the two continental powerhouses were paired against each other for a place in the World Cup playoffs. That meant one thing was certain: one of Africa's giants would be watching the 2027 World Cup from home. The battle between the Super Falcons and Banyana therefore carried far more than 3 points. It was a fight for survival, pride, history and a place on football's biggest stage. Madugu makes changes, but Nigeria struggles. Super Falcons coach Justine Madugu made several changes to his starting lineup following the defeat to Cameroon. Nigeria retained its familiar 4-3-3 formation, but there were notable changes in personnel and positioning. Francisca Ortega received her first start of the tournament after spending the previous 4 matches on the bench. She operated from the right wing, while Uchenna Kanu started on the left. Asisat Oshoala was deployed as the central striker. In midfield, Jennifer Ekegini, Deborah Abiodun and captain Rashidat Ajibade were tasked with controlling the middle of the pitch. At the back, Shukrat Oladipo started at right back, while Michelle Alozie was once again used on the left side of defense. Blessing Deemhin and Osiniki Ohale formed the central defensive partnership, with Chiamaka Nadozie in goal. But despite the changes, Nigeria struggled to impose itself on the contest. A goalless first half. The first half ended 0-0, with both sides knowing that one mistake could potentially decide the destiny of their World Cup dreams. Nigeria needed to produce more attacking urgency, but South Africa returned from the break with greater intensity. And eventually, the pressure told. Kiligatlana breaks the deadlock. The breakthrough arrived in the 56th minute. South African star Thembi Kiligatlana found the back of the net after receiving an assist from Hilda Maguire, sending Banyana into a 1-0 lead. Nigeria now had to chase the game. But rather than producing the response the Super Falcons desperately needed, South Africa continued to threaten. Then came another devastating blow. Jane makes it 2-0. In the 77th minute, Rafilo Jane scored South Africa's second goal, pushing Banyana into a commanding 2-0 lead. At that point, Nigeria's World Cup dream was hanging by a thread. The Super Falcons needed 2 goals just to force the contest level, while South Africa had momentum and the clock was rapidly running down. A late lifeline that came too late. Drama arrived deep into stoppage time. In the 90-plus third minute, Rafilo Jane committed a foul inside the penalty area and was shown a red card. Nigeria was awarded a penalty. Christy Uchibe stepped up and converted from the spot, giving Nigeria a late lifeline and reducing the deficit to 2-1. But there was simply not enough time left. The final whistle confirmed what Nigerian fans had feared. South Africa 2-1 Nigeria. Banyana had won the battle, and Nigeria's historic World Cup qualification streak was over. Tears, pain and a new reality. The emotional scenes after the final whistle told the story better than words could. Super Falcons players were devastated. Michelle Alozie was visibly overcome with emotion, with the defender seen in tears after Nigeria's elimination. For a generation of Nigerian football fans accustomed to seeing the Super Falcons at every Women's World Cup, the reality is difficult to comprehend. Nigeria has been one of the defining forces in African women's football. The Super Falcons have traditionally been the continent's representatives on the global stage, and their absence from the next World Cup marks the end of an extraordinary era of consistency. Where did it go wrong? The defeat has already sparked intense debate among Nigerian football supporters. Some fans have directed their frustration toward the Nigeria Football Federation, questioning whether the Super Falcons received adequate preparation for such an important tournament. Concerns have also been raised about the lack of quality friendly matches and sufficient preparation before and during the competition. Others have turned their attention toward the coaching staff, questioning the team's tactical approach, match reading and player positioning. One of the major talking points has been the continued use of players in positions different from their familiar roles, including Michelle Alozie, naturally a right back, being deployed at left back. Whether the blame lies with preparation, tactics, player selection, injuries, individual performances or a combination of all these factors, one thing is undeniable. Nigeria did not do enough to preserve its remarkable World Cup record. The end of an era, and the beginning of another. There is no doubt that this is a painful chapter for Nigerian women's football. But the Super Falcons cannot afford to remain trapped in disappointment. With the World Cup dream gone, attention must now turn toward the next challenge, including preparations for the Olympic qualifiers and the rebuilding of a team capable of returning Nigeria to the top of African women's football. This defeat should not erase the achievements of generations of Super Falcons players who built Nigeria's incredible World Cup legacy. Instead, it should serve as a wake-up call. Nigeria has the talent, history and football culture to compete at the highest level. What is now required is better preparation, stronger planning, consistent competitive matches, tactical clarity and a long-term development strategy for the women's national team. South Africa celebrate, Nigeria rebuilds. For South Africa, this victory represents another major step forward for Banyana Banyana. For Nigeria, it is a painful reminder that no football legacy is guaranteed forever. The Super Falcons have qualified for every Women's World Cup since the competition began, until now. South Africa 2-1 Nigeria. One nation celebrates qualification, the other must begin rebuilding. The era of automatic Nigerian presence at the Women's World Cup has come to an end, and the challenge now is to ensure this historic setback becomes the beginning of a stronger and more determined Super Falcons side. For more updates on Nigeria football, African football and WAFCON 2026, subscribe to Avuncula's production and Avuncula Movies on YouTube. I remain your host and sports presenter, Akegbulu David, reporting for Avuncula's services.
It's the blessed the remix in the God of Abraham. In the secret place of the Most High I dwell. His glory makes my life swell. He's the lifter up of my head. I yell, it's well, to the ends of the earth. Lord, I'll tell, I'm gonna ring it on like a bell. How my